Iconic design in portable audio has been around forever. As you can see here, I have two vintage examples of original Sony Walkman, basically portable cassette players that came out somewhere around the 80s, and a slightly more modern iterant, basically the Sony Discman, which followed the suit of the portable Walkman into the digital age. Continuing our portable audio history odyssey, these are three more examples of Sony portable Discman, and you can see sort of the advancement of miniaturization in each generation, which ultimately led to kind of the final design that implemented 8-track and MP3 playing capabilities. This in turn gave way to portable mini disc players and recorders, which in fact kind of merged the cassette recording culture with digital audio playing like CDs in order to create a new format that essentially you could record over up to 1 million times supposedly. And this brings us to Sony's last ditch attempt at implementing portable mini disc players. These are high MD players, and they can store significantly more than a regular mini disc, up to 1 gigabyte in fact, and play and record PCM recordings, which are pretty much the highest quality recordings you can get. And so these were perfect for field recorders, but even these failed in the face of iPods and the mounting smartphone revolution. And finally, here we have an example of kind of what superseded all of that, the iPod. And Apple's designs are very iconic and very well known, and these pretty easily stamped out all other forms of portable media at the time, though other companies did try and pretty much failed at competing directly against Apple's approach of, visually simple designs, easy user interfaces, and just very, very clean construction, well built. And one of the companies was actually Sony. In a direct attempt to compete with the iPod, both the flash-based and the hard disk-based players, Sony implemented several absolutely stunning MP3 player designs. And we can see here two examples of their flash-based players, as well as a hard disk-based player. And while these were very stunning in their design, very iconic and classic, they never really were able to defeat the iPods in the end, unfortunately, but they're still beautiful pieces to look at nowadays. And this goes right up until the modern age, basically, just a few years ago, where Sony releases kind of their last of their low to mid-range portable MP3 line, as well as Bluetooth accessories. And these haven't fared particularly well either, with the changing climate to streaming media and just playing music off of your smartphone nowadays. So this brings us to another company that I would actually consider to be a very aesthetic design, very technical company as well. This guy is the YP-MT6 from Samsung, and this specific model is 512 megabytes. And the whole reason why I went through kind of the history of portable media players is to kind of preface it with, this guy came out in 2005. And I wanted one of these forever. I first saw one of these at a technical trade show, and I saw the price tag was about $200, and that was way more than I can afford, as like a middle schooler. I think I was around middle school, and so I did not unfortunately get one at the time. However, I recently picked one of these up off of eBay, and I spent about $20, which you might be wondering why anyone in their right mind would buy, a 20-year-old MP3 player with only 512 megabytes of storage on board. And that's because I actually really appreciate how beautiful this is as an object and how well it's built. It has an absolutely solid construction. It's actually pretty outdated to use, but there are small quirks to it, but it's actually pretty cool to walk around with one of these and listen to music on it, even if it can only store a handful of albums at decent quality. But anyway, let's take a further deeper look into this now. So releasing this guy, as you can see on the back label here, in about October of 2005. It was actually pretty late in the game. By that point, iPods had a really strong foothold. They were number one in the market. And even some of the Sony players, they had come out with a number of models by that point. So this was actually one of the later models that looked like this in this kind of design series. It's basically the YP, which is the YEP series of Samsung, which I believe it stood for something similar to like young energetic persons or something like that. I don't know. It was Samsung's marketing at the time. And here you could see it's model MT6. There were, I believe, two preceding models that were slightly different than this. There was the T6 and the T5. And they had generally slightly lower capacities, ranging from like 128 to 256 megabytes. And the MT series introduced the upper end, so the 512 and the 1 gigabyte models, I believe. And so that's as highest of a capacity these ever went. The 1 gigabyte models now are silly expensive and very difficult to find. I believe there's only a new in-box one on eBay right now, and the guy wants like 80 or 90 bucks for it. So not happening for me, unfortunately. But anyway, interesting thing to know about these models are they actually have removable batteries. And the previous two models, the T5 and T6, used AAA batteries, which meant that they were actually slightly smaller than this model by about a smidge, so like 0.1 or 0.2 millimeters, something like that. But they were able to run on a AAA battery for about anywhere from like 15 to 20 hours. This model, they decided to spring for the larger AA battery. And you can see most of the volume is the battery. And with that, this can run for actually up to around 42 hours it's rated for, which is pretty significant. And it's interesting to note that most of the weight of this player is the battery. So if you take out the battery, it is still kind of a little weighty. This is metal and plastic construction. The things that make this feel really high end, though, I think, is the screen lens actually appears to be glass, and it's super clear. The model that I got is actually in really nice condition. It looks like it was barely ever used, which I'm really happy for. And gold-plated contacts on the battery door there. But yeah, it just feels really solid, especially with the battery in there. It has quite a bit of heft to it. And the buttons are kind of nicely accented. You can see they're matte, but the edges have been polished at a bevel, so it just catches the light just really nicely. And I think that just adds a little extra interestingness to it. It has a 5-way navigator joystick, so center, up, down, left, right. They mark the cardinal positions with what the function is. So volume up and down generally is up and down, left and right is track skip. When you're in a menu, though, it functions exactly as a D-pad you'd expect it to. So back takes you back in the menu, forward or enter takes you into whatever's selected, and up and down scrolls up and down. There's also another interesting thing at the time. iRiver was doing this around the same time, where they had direct recording. So this kind of takes into account, similar to what mini disc recorders could record live, either through a microphone or line in. These could as well. This uses actually a 2.5 millimeter, slightly smaller jack that you would have to use the cable that was supplied 3.5 millimeters to 2.5 millimeters in order to patch this into something just like a CD player or cassette, whatever, to record in real time. If you didn't like that option, these players actually have, if I can get it out, there we go, a mini USB port for digitally uploading audio onto them. And they're covered by this little rubber thing, which on a lot of them is generally discolored or ripped off by now. So it's actually very nice to see that this one has survived. And other than that, yeah, they have a microphone input. And as I said, you can record directly on the unit itself. On this side, you can see it says digital audio player. It has the logo for the battery, an LR6 AA, and the hold switch. On this side, we have the headphone jack. This luckily does accept full-size headphones. Another player that I considered to be beautiful for the time would be the Moby Blue Cube player, which I've yet to be able to get my hands on for a decent price. And those actually used a 2.5 millimeter headphone jack, so you had to kind of use the headphones that came with the player or buy an extra adapter to convert it to 3.5 millimeters. Luckily, Samsung had enough sense to keep the full-size headphone jack, so you can use any headphones with these directly. There's also a little lanyard hook, and if you give me a second, I'll grab. This came with actually the manual as well as the accessories. Okay, here's the baggie of goodies it came with. Came with this, I guess it's supposed to go around your neck, sort of like a lanyard, and a little travel case to protect it. And it's just a vinyl case, nothing special, but it gives you direct access to the USB port, not the record port though. The headphone jack, the strap, which actually clearly loops in on here, and that's unscrewable as well if you wanted to remove it quickly. And the case just buttons up, and you can hit the buttons through the clear vinyl. And there's a nice attention to detail hold for the microphone, as well as for the hold switch. And yeah, this is a nice thing. This case doesn't look badly used or anything, but you can clearly see this cord has seen better days. It's not doing so great. So, but luckily you can actually pull that out and just use the case as is if you want. For the purposes of this video though, I'm going to remove the case so that you can see the beauty of the item itself. Now I really like the design, how they have like two accent colors, a center color and then sort of this trim silver and then brushed aluminum inserts into that. And it's just so very well made. I love it. Additionally, included was a little stubby mini USB to full-size USB adapter. So the idea would be you can have this plug hanging out of your computer without having to carry an extra cord, just this little dongle thingy. Not necessary, you can use any mini USB cable. And to round that out, we have a quick start guide, a manual, and a notice. So let's see, they're just warning you that some of the memory is used up for the system and the OS on the unit itself, so you're going to get less. That was very common back in the day to warn. A lot of people were kind of pissed off when you bought, a memory device and, oh, look, like 20% of it's just not there when you actually plug it into a computer. And so that was one of the things. A lot of units came with kind of this warning. And they're just saying don't return it to the store. File a warranty claim if something's wrong with Samsung. Quick start guide just goes through. I will say the user interface on this takes a little bit of getting used to. I'm used to kind of what you see is what you get, and not having to memorize holding buttons for different amounts of time to get different effects sort of things. Sony was pretty good about that. You'll see, for instance, in this voice recorder, if a button has a double function, they actually will put a symbol showing you that you have to hold this button to activate the home function, for instance. Samsung does not do that. You just have to memorize, if you press and hold play, pause, A, B, or the menu button, it does different things. So that's sort of one valid criticism I see of this. And they go through how to connect the USB cable and download files. Now, there is one thing to mention. This model, you can just drag and drop music using, any kind of Windows Explorer type file browser. The previous models, I believe you have to use the bundled software, or there's another like third-party software in order to manage the music on the unit. So if you're thinking of getting one of the previous models of this, just keep that in mind. You should find the software before you get it. I haven't looked into whether that software is still easily available or anything. I just read that this one can do direct drag and drop, which is ideal. That's one thing about buying these old MP3 players. You have to make sure that you will be able to get your music onto it, that you can find the correct drivers and software. And finally, we have the user manual. Very aesthetically nicely done, very clean picture there. Yeah, you can see USB 2, 42 hours playback, direct MP3 recording, etc., etc. I haven't actually gone through this myself. It looks fairly generic. and just explaining the user interface from the kind of currently playing song screen. One thing I do like is you can actually change a lot of things. This is very configurable. This line, you can have it indicate what the next track it's going to play in the lineup is, or you can have it display what the folder is or what the album is. You can change a lot of things on this player to suit whatever you want. Yeah, and they even go through how to hook up a Discman to directly record from it. One thing to note on the direct encoding portion, and even the mic recording, this maxes out at 128 kbps, recording directly to the unit in real time. So you're not going to get any crispy 320 kbps MP3s off of this, unfortunately. It does have an FM radio though, which from my testing actually works pretty well. And one thing to note is this has tons of EQ modes, and you can tweak just about every little setting on it. It does multi-band EQ setting. You can use presets. It has SRS, True Bass, and Wow, and you can even manipulate those algorithms, what frequencies it operates on, and what the level is. So it's actually pretty configurable. You can see here. And here you can see the multiband EQ. Does have also configurability, the scroll speed of song names on the playback screen. And you can change the contrast as well on the display, change the language. It's just, this is really full featured for back in the day. I'm actually really surprised on this. Yeah, you can see they even include a menu tree, which is, you do not see this nowadays on products. Yeah, you can see just kind of how deep it goes and what all the configurations are. It's actually pretty neat. And these specifications, yeah, apparently it's also has zinc in the casing. That's interesting. And yeah, here you can see I had the 512 megabyte unit, but it goes from 128 megs to 1 gigabyte. And the I believe, yeah, there you go, the noise ratio 89 decibels. And I've listened using in-ear monitors on these to see what the noise floor is and, you know, how the sound reproduction is, and they actually sound really good. I've actually squished my audio files to test with this into about 130 kbps VBR, so variable bit rate, and they actually do sound fantastic. So let me just turn this on for a second. And you'll notice the jog wheel lights up blue, and it looks really nice. And you can independently change how long these lights stay on for, or if they stay on forever. And it has a really nice powder blue display. It's sort of a slightly bluish white, and it looks really nice. It's super clear. You can increase or decrease the contrast as you like as well. And to access your menu, you just press the center button, and it's actually by folder. So you can see here, this is the literal root if you were to access this in Windows Explorer or any other file browser. So you can actually shove things in different directories to sort things, but that's sort of as far as you get. You can't actually search like on the entire unit by artist or by like searching a track name or anything like that. Unfortunately, you're kind of locked in with this archaic file browser mode. You can see you can select the folder, go into it again, scroll through the songs, and just go back to exit back out. Now, to access the main menu, let's see if I remember how to do that. If I press and hold this, now it'll take me to the main menu. So I can go back into Now Playing. I can enter the FM radio, and if I do that right now, I don't have anything plugged in. So it's not getting any reception. But yeah, the user interface actually looks like they put quite a bit of work into it. And it looks very nice for using kind of a relatively high resolution but small monochrome LCD. Let's go back into the menu. navigation actually just takes you to routing through, the folder system. So even though they include a magnifying glass, you think that would mean search, but no, it's not really searching. There's playlists, which you can set up. And if you wanted to create compilations from multiple songs in different folders, not really any use for me. And settings. And the settings system is exactly what we saw in the user manual, just within the unit itself. And we can go into About and see I only have 141 songs on here, and I have 1 megabyte free. So I really crammed it in. And yeah, you can even change like the FM tuner region, so this can work worldwide. And so let's see. Okay, so here, the two menus I'll be using most, play mode. You can set it to normal, repeat, repeat all, shuffle, or intro, and you can change in another menu how long. So the intro mode is actually interesting. It will play back the first X number of seconds of every song and just go through them all. And so you can change the amount of time. So I have it set to 10 seconds. So this would play 10 seconds of every song back to back. Sort of, I think it's sort of like a demo mode, I would almost say. Not really something that you would use in real life, but if you had this in the store when this were new, you'd have this hooked up to a speaker and just playing demo mode after demo mode. Other than that, we have my sound, which I currently have the EQ set to wow. And you can even have bass booster, and then within wow set, I have it set to optimum, but you can change the different frequencies and what the effects of these filters do. And if you want to, you can set user EQ to whatever you want. And just on that, yeah, you get 5 bands, 50, 200, 1K, 5K, and 16 kilohertz. And you can adjust them in, it looks like 10 increments, but it's actually double because you can actually do in between each bar. So it's actually 20 level increments, which is pretty impressive for something this small. So they must be running like a little tiny DSP or something in here. And if we just go back out to exit, yeah. So overall, if I had this in middle school as an MP3 player, I would have been psyched to have this. Back then, I believe I had only had a Discman was my most advanced player. I might have around that time had gotten my first mini disc player, which would be definitely kind of on par with this. It was a low-end player, though, unfortunately. Recorder, luckily, so I could at least record my own discs. But yeah, I would have loved to have something like this just to throw in my pocket and listen to music during lunch or whenever I had a little bit of free time. I remember seeing this at the convention and just thinking, wow, that's so much smaller than my Discman or my cassette player at the time that I also used a little bit. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this really random video, me rambling on. If you want to see like other series of this where I just generally talk about different players that I've collected and give a short demonstration of each of them, just let me know. I have plenty, God knows I have plenty of different portable audio players, probably totaling like 50 or 60 in my collection currently, and most of which are in fully working condition that I've refurbished myself. So yeah, anyway, if you guys are interested, you can actually Google this model number and see they come in different colors and slightly different feature sets, and I think they're all stunning. And so I'm really happy to actually have one of these in my collection right now. Even though it's not something I'm going to carry every day to listen to music, and I'm definitely not going to listen to music with a critical mindset on this, because it's clearly going to be limited in its capability just because of the time that it came out and the limitations of the form factor, the UI, and the power source and all that kind of stuff. So this obviously won't hold a candle to like a modern smartphone with mid-range to high-end smartphone with a massive internal memory to store all your music in FLAC. So yeah, this is not for people who are looking for something like an everyday carry, but if you're into portable digital music history, I think this definitely deserves a spot amongst other you know large manufacturers such as Apple and Sony.